What is the true story behind the haunting in Connecticut? Stay tuned after this. What's up, Grayson Report? If you've been following me for quite some time, I've been doing a few videos on the true story behind some of our favorite horror films. And this one is about a haunting. I have not seen this film in quite some time, so let's dive in. The true story of the terrifying events behind the haunting in Connecticut. In 1986, the Snedeker family moved into their new home in Southington, Connecticut, but 2 years later, their family would leave the house telling stories of shocking paranormal activity. The true story of the haunting in Connecticut began in 1986 when the Snedeker family moved into the historic home at 208 Meriden Avenue. The Snedekers were desperately searching for a home to rent in the area so their son Philip could receive treatment for his Hodgkin lymphoma at the nearby Yukon Hospital. The house on Meriden Avenue seemed like a perfect fit, and the Snedekers rushed to move in. What seemed like a lucky find quickly turned into a nightmare once the family began experiencing paranormal activity. They reported seeing and hearing unknown forces, being attacked in their sleep, and even experiencing violent personality changes. This is the true story that inspired a terrifying Hollywood film. The beginning of the true story of the haunting in Connecticut. So this is a picture of the Snedeker family in the 80s, and of course, they're standing next to Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Snedeker family were like any other middle-class American family. They were comprised of Cameron Reed, her husband Alan Snedeker, and their 4 children, Philip Bradley, Alan Jr., and Jennifer. Carmen's niece Tammy also lived with the family. At a young age, Philip was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma, a type of cancer that affects the body's lymphatic system. Because of Philip's diagnosis, the Snedekers family often had to travel long distances from their home to the Yukon Hospital for treatment. Eventually, the family felt that it would be better to move closer to the hospital so that Philip would not have to suffer through long and often painful car rides. The search began for a home large enough to house the Snedeker family as soon as they found what they were looking for at 208 Meriden Avenue. The 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom home provided plenty of space for the family, and so on June 30th, 1986, the Snedekers signed a lease and moved into the home. The disturbing history of the Southington home. Well, at least I was thinking, at least they didn't buy the house, it was a lease. The move-in process seemed seamless for the Snedekers. The children picked their bedrooms with minimal arguments, and the family loaded their belongings into the house smoothly. Everything seemed normal until Carmen made a disturbing discovery in the home's basement. Laying among dusty boxes and old furniture were funerary items. The family claimed that the basement had embalming equipment and other materials necessary to run a mortuary. I find that kind of cool. According to the 2002 documentary about the case, A Haunting in Connecticut, Carmen stated that she had no idea the home had once been a funeral parlor. When she toured the home, Carmen said that she was unable to enter the basement because renovators had blocked the doorway with materials. And also, too, I think in some states they don't have to um, tell you that the history of the house, like if it's haunted or anything. Carmen confirmed that the house was once a funeral home by contacting Daryl Kern, the home's owner. Kern stated that the property was once the Hullahan funeral home and had been in operation for decades, though he claimed that he told the family about this before they moved in, as per a 1992 piece in the Hartford Courant. This disturbing fact did not prevent Carmen's sons, Philip and Bradley, from claiming the basement as their own bedroom. As the oldest Snedeker children, Philip and Bradley wanted a private space of their own, and the basement was spacious compared to the smaller rooms on the upper floor. Of course, what teenager wouldn't want a space for their own? And I would kind of find it. I would sleep in the basement, knowing that it was a funeral. I would. Philip and Bradley reportedly slept in a casket display room down the hall from the embalming room. In addition to mortuary equipment, the Snedekers also found images of the deceased on the property. According to the Chasing the Frog, Carmen Snedeker said there were a couple of photos in the home, but there were many toe tags and head tags. There were other personal items of the deceased. The Snedeker, I wonder what they did with those items. The Snedeker family terrifying experience with paranormal activity. The most horrifying aspect of the true story of a haunting in Connecticut dealt with intensive and often violent interactions the Snedeker said they had with the paranormal. The paranormal activity in the house started the night the family moved into the home and targeted Philip more than any other family member. My son started seeing this young man with long black hair down all the way to his hips, Carmen stated to People. He would talk to my son every day. Sometimes he would threaten him. Other times he would stand there and just say his name, which was enough to scare him. Um, I've always had a belief that if you're close to death, that you would be close to the spirit world. Um, and Philip having the lymphoma put him in that situation. So I feel like that's why he would have gotten targeted first. However, the spooky happening slowly spread to other family members and escalated to intensity. Carmen claimed that while mopping the floor, the water turned into blood and gave off an acrid smell reminiscent of rotting flesh. The mop water was blood red. I mean, a deep red. It made my skin crawl. I started getting nervous that I was ruining the floor, Carmen said in a 2002 documentary. Most shocking was the claim from both Carmen and Alan that unknown forces had R and S them. What? While unknown forces physically tormented the adults in the family, they seemed to take a deeper interest in Philip than ever before. The Snedeker started to worry with Philip's personality began to change. He became irritable and reckless, often inflicting cruel punishments on his younger siblings. On one occasion, Philip placed Bradley on a gurney and spun him around until the younger boy begged him to stop. He also locked his brother in a chest and walked away. The worst incidents came after Philip attacked his cousin Tammy and was consequently forced to spend 45 days in a hospital. Doctors eventually diagnosed Philip with schizophrenia after he told them about the entities he saw regularly, but they noted that the medication he was on to treat his cancer could not have given him hallucinations or triggered any dormant schizophrenic illness. I mean, yeah, that's why you got to be careful who you tell about what you see because they're going to automatically think you are crazy. The Snedeker family decided it was best to send Philip to live with relatives, and reportedly Philip stopped hearing voices and seeing spirits after this. With such strong indications of paranormal activity, Snedeker family contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren, two paranormal investigators, as well as a priest to do an exorcism on the house. Of course, Ed and Lorraine Warren would be involved in this case. On September 6, 1988, a priest performed an exorcism on the house, and the family reported that the paranormal activity suddenly disappeared. Later that year, they moved out of the house and never returned, thus marking an end to the supposed true story of the haunting in Connecticut, casting doubts on the true story of haunting in Connecticut. With the Snedeker's fantastical claims of violent paranormal experiences,
Why get the grow up plan for your
go away, Ed. With the Snedeker's fantastical claims of violent paranormal experiences, some people doubted their validity. The Snedeker family went public with their experiences prior to leaving the residence, and Daryl Kern noted in the 1992 from the Hartford Courant that the reported paranormal activity seemed to escalate when the family was behind on rent. Huh. It's a scheme to make money, Kern said. Even the family's neighbor, Catherine Adamus, believed that the whole thing was a hoax. I think they had this planned right from when they moved in, she said in the same newspaper piece. Adamus noted that the family always appeared jovial whenever they were outside, not acting like a terrified family. Friends of Philip even stated that they too didn't believe the story given his personality. He was a storyteller. He always had to be the center of attention, Jeffrey Poehler said to the Hartford Courant. 2 weeks prior to a Hollywood film release in 2009, more people spoke out against the family's claim, including the new owner of the supposed haunted house. We've lived in the house for 10 years. Our house is wonderful, Susan Trotta Smith, the owner of the house in 2009, told NBC Connecticut. This is all Hollywood foolishness. The stories are ludicrous. While people debate whether the story behind one of Hollywood's most spine-tingling horror films is true or not, the true story of the haunting in Connecticut and the Snedeker family has certainly solidified itself as one of the greatest ghost stories in American history. All right, about how the person that lives in the house now claims that there's no paranormal activity or nothing's going on. I've heard from a lot of you that been following me in the chat that has said that that's the same with the Amityville house, that the people currently living in the Amityville house has not experienced anything. I do believe that you have to be open to the paranormal in order to experience something. I feel like if you're closed off, like, you're not going to have that experience. So I kind of get it. If the people living there now may not experience anything because they just don't believe in it, but that could be a possibility. But I feel like because Ed and Lorraine Warren are involved, I feel like this story is not real. They did mention in an article that the family seemed to come up with these stories when they were behind on rent. I don't know why I would come up with that story if I couldn't pay the rent. I mean, you still would have to pay the rent. Um, and they were saying that Philip himself was a storyteller. So I'm a little skeptical about the story. Guys, do you believe a haunting is a true story? Do you believe the Snedekers made it up? Comment below. And as always, I do go live every Monday, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be there or be squared. Stay spooky and sweet nightmares, guys. And I will see you on the next one.